Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always, coming to you live on a Saturday morning. Hopefully, you are having a wonderful weekend of March Madness. Hopefully, your brackets are doing well. And excited to dive into some Charger stuff here this morning with my guy, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing very well, though I do have the burning question. Is 2 conch squared or just 2 conch? Anybody who does math, like how are we approaching that one? The Chargers went with conch squared on that one,
Yeah.
but is it conch squared or 2 conch, or how are we doing this?
I like conch squared, I think.
But are we I don't know. It's just a stupid question. I don't know. Stupid question. Good. Happy you have an opinion on this one.
Yeah. I don't know what you were looking for there, but we got some highs in the chat. We got Mark in here from Germany, which is super cool. Love to see that. The international fan base is continuing to grow. We had another one. Good morning from Huntington Beach. So Kurt is right around there in the neck of the woods for Tyler. The Czech Republic. Wow. All right. Michael in here from the Czech Republic. Brooks' family is part Czech. Fun fact. Did I miss anybody else who said hi? We got a hello from Vegas. We got a how's it from Hawaii. Let us know, guys, where you're checking in. Bakersfield, Central California. What's up? Eugene. Tacoma. Wow, we're covering a lot of bases here today, you guys. Love to see it. Frank says 2 conchs or not 2 conchs. That is the question.
Yes. Oh, Dylan Cole with a 9-hour flight delay. That sucks, man. That's I hear it like chip away at an hour at a time, maybe 2 hours, but 9-hour flight delay. Shoot, man. Good luck.
I feel like I would just like leave. One time, like back in 2019, we went to Washington, D.C., like over spring break, and our flight got canceled because of a storm like in the Midwest. So we initially had been flying through Dallas, and instead of like waiting for a reschedule, we ended up flying from DC to Minnesota to Vegas and then driving because it was faster than like how they were going to reschedule. And that was not fun, but we did get home faster than the reschedule.
Yeah. Wow. I slept overnight at an airport in China waiting for my flight to go to Thailand.
Yeah.
So not a delay, just a what's it called? What's
how
the word?
Flight was set up?
Yeah, layover. Thank you. Good Lord.
Yeah. When I went to Peru, we had to sleep in Mexico City airport for like 6-hour layover. It was like 10 p.m. So we all just like slept in the airport. So
yeah, that was my first time traveling by myself. So to a country. No,
that's always fun.
Yeah, first time out of this country and by myself, and I'm just sitting and I just grab my bags and I'm like,
yep.
I'm 4 feet taller than everyone in this airport. Like, I got this. I'll be fine. I'm the biggest guy here.
There you go. You could be the left tackle in that place.
Oh, 100%. I am Foster Sarrell to them.
That's so good. We got San Diego in the chat, Seattle in the chat, Chicago. Love Chicago. Great food city. If you've never been to Chicago, Chicago is a great food city. North Korea, fantastic, I guess. Eugene, Nevada, northeastern Colorado, south of France, fellow Fresno, Eric White, Turlock, Wyoming, San Clemente.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Skamokawa is what I was going to go with as well. Ohio, Bishop, California, North Carolina. O-side, like Oceanside? Maybe.
Is anybody from like Los Angeles?
Yeah, I know. Clovis, Tucson, Arizona, Eastern Iowa, Chula Vista, Ireland, Panama, Memphis. Nice. Classic. Don Cheto. Classic. Central Texas, Anaheim. There we go. That's close to LA.
All right.
Paradise Hills to Iowa. Ooh, that's a big change. That is a big change. Salt Lake City in the house. I'm just going to keep going because everybody's sending in stuff. Seattle, St. Louis, Vail. Ooh, great ski resort town. Oregon, Anaheim, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, Riverside, California, Gainesville, go Gators. I have them in my Final Four, so yeah, go Gators. San Diego, Hotchkiss, Colorado, North Korea again, North Carolina, Skyline, LA, Cincinnati, Panama. This is going to take me forever, but I feel like I got to commit to it.
Yeah, man.
Fairfield, Southern Indiana, San Bernardino, originally from Long Beach, which is LA County. That's cool. There you go. New Jersey, fellow New Jersey fan from that's a Chargers fan, like Alex. I don't know if Alex is here in the chat. Carpinteria, Virginia, Solana Beach, California. Where's that? I've never heard of that one.
It's
National
Solana
City.
Beach.
Tyler responded to our own thing and said Irvine, Monterey, Coachella, Huntington Beach, Ventura, Newport Beach, Carl Junction, Guantanamo Bay. That's good. North Pole, Santa Ana, Santa Barbara, Djibouti, nice. Herbert's Basement. That's a little creepy. That's a little creepy. From LA, now living in South Carolina. I'm not going to show your other one, but it is class. Okay. There you go. Ukaipa? Is that how you say that one?
Sure.
Denver. Caparis? Colorado.
Progressively dumber. It's so funny.
Michael's is actually Slovakia. Okay. Isengard. Nice.
Lovely.
Cape Coral. London. I'll be there in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Iran. Houston. Charlotte. It has to be Greg Roman's belly button. What is happening? Area 51. What a way to start. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is what you get on a Saturday Q&A, folks.
We're 8 minutes in. We're the absolute worst.
It was inevitable. It was inevitable that we would have some kind of crash out like that. It's only fair that it happens from start to finish.
I will say, if any of you are actually joining us for North Korea, I'm flattered, and I would frankly be annoyed if we weren't the ones that got the North Korean audience, okay? Like, where else you going? Right here, baby.
Someone said Narnia. North Turner's neck. That is too good. That's too good.
It wasn't 9 minutes. It's like a 2-hour podcast of this.
Oh man, this is too good. This is too good. Okay. The Chargers made a signing yesterday, bringing in veteran tight end Tyler Conklin. We'll get there eventually. We'll take some questions for the bulk of the show today, so that's why we do these on Saturday. We have a good time. So Tyler Conklin, that's a little out of line there, John Well. That's a little too much. That is a little too much. Oh man. Okay, Tyler Conklin, fellow Tyler, Conk squared, pass catching tight end. We're good. This is where the Chargers are at. So we wanted to kind of show the depth chart where we're at here. So we'll start with the offense actually. So this is the offensive depth chart, how I have it. So we will obviously kind of go through this. Blue players are ones that the Chargers brought back. Players highlighted in yellow are veteran additions. And so we can look at some of the recent signings who we haven't talked a ton about. Obviously, we've talked a lot about most of them, I feel like. But Andre James, I have penciled in right now with an or designation between him and Bradley Bozeman. It kind of seems like the Andre James contract is going to be a veteran minimum contract. I still think that he should be considered the favorite to win the center position battle going into training camp. But until we have that clarity, I'm going to designate that as an or. And then Tyler Conklin has been penciled in as the move tight end. So as it currently stands, the tight end room, which is, you know, a room that we've talked a lot about with Will Dissly, Tucker Fisk as the blockers. They signed their Tyler Conklin. They did carry 4 tight ends all throughout the season last year, so I would definitely still expect them to add a tight end at this point in time. But Tyler, now that we have the Conklin signing, what are your thoughts as we look at this his fit with the offense and specifically the depth chart here?
Generally the same as I think Thursday when he was visiting the Chargers, and that's good floor raising signing. Feel good about the consistency there. Does it prevent them from taking a tight end at 22? No. I really just think that means they're safe heading into this draft, not having to reach for someone in round 2, round 3, or whatever. They can adjust as needed for the strength of the draft. So is it a great home run, 1,000-yard tight end? Nope. Was it ever supposed to be? Nope. His contract says that he's not that kind of guy, but he will elevate the floor of this offense. So is it a dynamic tight end room? No. Can they even get a dynamic tight end room with an addition that isn't Loveland or Warren? I don't really think so, to be completely honest. So Conklin just gives you an immediate, here's 400 or 500 yards, and we're going to take this offensive passing attack as kind of a Frankenstein's monster of different parts to put together, a couple or 3 receivers that can get to 2,000 yards together and a couple of tight ends that can get to 1,000 receiving yards together. It's not going to be 2 guys who just dominate the targets and the receptions and the yards. It's going to be an amalgamation of a different group of people, I think. And I think it's kind of showing us how they're going to approach the draft as well. Again, I don't think receiver or tight end is at this point the play at 22, especially with who's going to be there. So I think they're just going to piecemeal this thing and create maybe a well-rounded or more depth offense, but it's definitely not going to be a high-flying explosive one. I do appreciate though, like overall with this, the learning, I think ahead of, or at least based on last year's class and how things turned out, like, whoops, we didn't figure out interior offensive line. Okay, we'll figure it out in August and September and October. Didn't work out. At least this time, there's Andre James. I'm not saying that solves the issue, but you have more potential answers there. Same thing with Conklin. So I like the approach.
Yeah, the approach with the Tyler Conklin and Andre James signing are moves that we did not see with the previous regime. The previous regime would head into the draft with a glaring need at tight end. And if your guy is not there at 22, that means reaching for, a Kenneth Murray type, pick because you don't have any linebackers, right? We've seen that story time and time again under the previous regime. So with this new regime, they have really done a nice job of providing depth to the roster. So, I was asked this question yesterday of like, have the Chargers actually improved? And I think the offensive line will definitely be improved. I think we can say that like definitively at this point in time. But outside of like, they haven't made any drastic improvements to the roster overall, but there's definitely more depth. And I think this is how the Chargers believe in operating, which is you bring in depth through free agency and your stars you find in the draft. I think that's how the Ravens have generally always done things. The athletic football guys were talking about like the Ravens philosophy and how they've always just made the veteran edge rusher market work to their advantage, whether that's Kyle Van Noy, whether that's Jadeveon Clowney, whether that's Justin Houston or whoever, right? But then their stars of the defense, generally speaking, they find through the draft. Your Nnamdi Madubuike's, your Kyle Hamilton's, your Marlon Humphreys. Like those are the guys you find through the draft, and then you supplement them with your veteran free agent pickup. So I think that's really what we're seeing. I know everybody wanted them to go be more aggressive, and I did too at certain spots, right? Like I still think I would have preferred to have like a Will Fries, but they have decided to go. Let's fill out the depth chart with as many, solid veterans that we can. There's a running joke on Twitter where they're calling Joe Ortiz the king of Five Below because everybody's signing for like $5 million or below. But right now it's kind of working. I think they have a really nice roster in place where they can go in, find your stars in the draft. And I know it's riskier to bet on rookies, right? But hard to doubt them for what they were able to accomplish last year.
It's difficult when you feel a certain way about these signings and you don't know the season that's about to happen. I wouldn't have guessed that, Chark and Hurst would have had as poor of a season as they did.
Right.
But looking at this, TBD if Najee Harris is an upgrade over J.K. Dobbins, I think not necessarily. It just kind of depends what you're going for. Consistency and health and potential long-term outlook, sure, Najee Harris, but J.K. Dobbins is a whole different, more explosive situation. But otherwise, have you upgraded over Hayden Hurst? I'm pretty darn sure. Have you upgraded over DJ Chark? I'm pretty sure. Have you upgraded over Trey Pipkins? I'm pretty sure. Have you upgraded at center? TBD, but you have an option right there where you can upgrade over your center play from last year. So
Yeah.
even if the team, is getting 4% better with each move that they make, each individual move that they make, the collective is going to help the offense get to the divisional round or survive the Houston game next year or whatever it ends up being. So as long as they're getting a little bit better at each spot, and I think they have for the most part, I agree, or I can get behind what they're doing. There's no big splash move, obviously, but they've been getting marginally better with each addition. So when you step back and look at the collective, you feel much better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think with the tight end room in particular, I think the idea of bringing in Disley and Hurst was, from a receiving standpoint, that Disley would be kind of your middle of the field guy. Like he runs most of his routes from the inline. And then Hayden Hurst would handle your slot reps from the tight end perspective, your vertical reps from the tight end perspective. A lot of the screen game was initially designed around Hayden Hurst, and then Will Dissly kind of had to fill in the rest. And that's obviously not Will Dissly's game. And so Tyler Conklin is going to come in, and I think he's going to handle more slot reps. I think, make sure I get this number right. With the Jets, the last 2 years, he was 48% of his receiving snaps were from the slot in 2024 and 58 of them in 2023. So this is a guy who, like, he can run the routes from the inline, but he is essentially your receiving tight end from the slot. You can throw him screens, you can throw him verticality reps. Like that's the goal here. Where if you can get your Colston Loveland, who can do all of the reps, all of the receiving routes, like great. If not, you have your two veterans who can kind of, tackle the receiving role from the tight end perspective combined, as opposed to, what happened. Because when Hayden Hurst got injured, like they tried to do the Eric Tomlinson thing. They tried to do Stone Smart, and I think the Stone Smart stuff actually worked, but they just didn't get back to it. But then eventually it just became Will Dissly's show, and I think that's not how they originally wanted to handle the tight end position. So Tyler Conklin and will at least give them, a nice floor and a nice compliment to who they have in Will Dissly, who I know he had 2 drops in the playoff game, folks, but outside of that, he was a very good receiver for the team last year. And so Tyler Conklin will help, increase their effectiveness overall from that role.
Where's your thoughts on how this affects their draft first 3 rounds or so?
Well, I think we can kind of pivot this. I think at this point in time, now that you have Tyler Conklin, I think the biggest glaring hole for me on the roster in terms of starters is that pass rushing defensive tackle type. And I think this is kind of where we're setting up to, do they have to draft a defensive tackle in the first round or second round? No, but I mean, you look at, we just talked about tight end, you can kind of get to a functional point. They don't use receivers a ton. Like I know everybody wants them to take a receiver in the first round, and I get it. But with Ladd, another step from Quentin and Mike Williams back, you theoretically have upgraded from where you were at last year, even though it might not be significant. But this defensive tackle room, like I think they've done a good job of trying to replace Puna Ford with multiple bodies, trying to replace Morgan Fox here. But they have no legitimate pass rush juice. And I think even Eboigbe, who could become a pass rusher, like he was more of a run defense guy who flashed pass rush in college. So they do really need an interior pass rusher. And I think right now that is the most glaring hole on the starting depth chart, at least for now.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's less about Conklin takes away the need for tight end as much as it just allows you to pick likely the pass rushing defensive tackle, especially when 2 of them could be there at 22. You're not just praying for Loveland to be there at 22. Like you could have a couple of options there, and you could do it again in the second round. So yeah, I definitely agree. Edge rusher, defensive tackle, anything rushing the passer, I think is really in play in that first round.
Yeah, edge rusher, I think is going to be very interesting. You're not a huge fan of Shamar Stewart, but it sounds like he's gonna go in the top 12, like almost regardless. Jalen Walker will go early.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Green from Marshall, his film is insanely fun to watch,
Yep.
but he's got the previous assault cases against him where he's got to convince these teams to still potentially take him. So his range is kind of all over the place. Micah Williams, who reportedly was like a freak athlete, he was on the freaks list in 2023 ahead of that season. He didn't test very well at Georgia's Pro Day. So that's a guy who could be falling. James Pierce, there's a lot of like, does he love football questions around him? He could be falling. So this edge rusher class, which I thought initially was like a strong suit, is really kind of turning into a lot of question marks. And you have Donovan Ezaraku, who's a really good player. He might be the guy who elevates above the rest because he doesn't have those kind of questions. So this edge rusher class is very interesting. And I think there could be a few options at edge, at 22 for where we're at with the question marks of this group.
Yeah, hard for me to pinpoint. And if we ever get to rankings for edge rushers, hard for me to even just stack these guys because it's productive guy, not many traits, high traits guy, no production. Maybe you have both and you have character issues. So there's really not an easy stack for me. And I don't know how you like, okay, this guy has 25 pressures last year and he might be a top 20 player. Like, how do I stack that player versus the others? Ezaraku is productive as hell. I don't know about I didn't know about his physical profile. I feel better after his combine. What he weighed in as, but it's a tricky group. But anyway, I do believe it is defensive tackle, but I still think a pass rusher on the edge is in play, but I agree the defensive tackle as a pass rusher is the biggest need.
Yeah. I think there's a chance that we might be surprised in the first round with who the Chargers take, which with the previous regime, it was always like, okay, like they're going to take this position or that position. Like whoever's there, that's who they're going to take. You could always kind of predict who that was going to be. But with this current regime, I do feel like they've done enough of a job where they could take whoever they feel like is the best player available. If that's a corner, I wouldn't completely rule that out. If that's a safety prospect, I wouldn't completely rule that out. If that's a linebacker, that's probably out, but that's really like the only one where they're like set. They don't really need any linebackers. Other than that, obviously they don't need a quarterback. Other than that, I think everything else is honestly like up for grabs because part of this, I went back and listened to the interview that Todd McShay did with Eric DaCosta, and they have always planned for the draft. Like, yes, ideally you want instant impact, but you're not just planning for the upcoming year, right? Like you're planning this particular draft pick to be here for the next 5 years, ideally at minimum, with the 5th year option. So this is about longevity as well. And so you have all of these guys who are brought into this team and they're all on 1-year contracts, right? Like, does this team look at Khalil Mack and his like 1-year contract and say, we'd really like to get a long-term replacement here. Bud Dupree's a free agent after this upcoming season as well. Is edge rusher a super instant need? No, but will that help you a lot in 2026, especially if that guy can sit and learn from Khalil Mack? Yes, like I think that is objectively true. So I know the fan base very clearly wants a receiver, but I think genuinely everything outside of linebacker and quarterback is on the table in the first round.
Yeah, and offensive tackle, I guess.
Yeah.
It's the placement of a body on the depth chart at each position does not mean they can't go get a player at the same position because, as you mentioned, everybody's on a 1-year deal basically.
Yeah.
So great, that helps you this year. Oh, what about next year? Are we doing the same song and dance again with more 1-year deals? We will. The Chargers will, but hopefully not as much as they had to this year. I think more draft, like another 10 draft picks. Hopefully, 6 of them stick around, 7, 8, are pretty good.
Yeah,
and give you some sort of future. So we don't have to do this every year.
Yeah, I agree. Any other thoughts there as it pertains to the depth chart with where we're at, whether that's offense or defense here?
I don't think so. I think we are all kind of on the same page with defensive tackle. It'd be nice for them to get weapons. That has not really changed in my non-negotiables. They just don't need to take a tight end as early. but I still want the 3 new weapons in there.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say here as it pertains to the draft, the Chargers are quietly doing a lot of homework on like the day 3 offensive tackles, it seems like, which does make sense if you look at, again, where they're at on the offensive line. They don't need an offensive tackle. I mean, like, Mekhi Becton can play tackle for them. Trey Pipkins can play tackle for them. Jamari Sawyer can play tackle for them. But, Trey Pipkins is on the last year of his contract. Jamari Sawyer, last year of his contract. They theoretically could use like a long-term developmental tackle. So that's kind of like a day 3 thing, but a lot of their visits and pro day visits are kind of that group of like day 3 offensive tackle types. So just something to keep an eye on as we kind of pivot towards mock drafts, that they are looking at day 3 offensive tackles right now.
They will look at them. I will not. I will let them just tell me who that person is, and then I'll watch them afterwards.
That's fair. That is fair. All right, so we are going to take questions for the next 35 minutes or so. I'm sure we'll have a good time considering how the show started today. But for now, of course, I have to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. Again, March Madness is in full swing. Hopefully you guys have been able to take advantage of prizepicks.com/guilty to increase the amount of investment you have in March Madness, because this is a great time of year. We had friends over watching the games last night. I had our regular TV. I brought our TV from upstairs, brought it downstairs, put it on our kitchen table. We had multiple screens going, had Wingstop, everything like that. And a bunch of us got in on Prize Picks right before a couple of the games started. So prizepicks.com/guilty. Code guilty is a great way to get some extra skin in the game. Great way to overcompensate for the lack of football right now. This just brings back some nostalgia here from the Guilty as Charged podcast. And it does genuinely help support the show, and it helps support you guys as well. So prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout. It is the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports, and we cannot recommend it enough. Good news. We have Thomas Martinez, who will watch the backup offensive tackles for you guys. So if you're not following Thomas on Twitter, definitely recommend that you do that. He does draft profiles on Twitter extensively, does a lot of work in there. So he's a great follow as we ramp up towards draft season. Alex Katzen as well. If you missed during the season, we did Katzen's Corner every single week. And he talks about 6 or 7 prospects in every single episode during the season. We'll have him back on at some point as well here. He recently had a surgery, so once he gets healthy, we'll get him back in here into the swing too. So make sure to follow Thomas and Alex Katzen for the best Chargers draft content.
Yeah, we're really lucky that we have 2 people like that who cover the Chargers so in depth, and like they cover other, like Thomas Martinez covers the draft and draft prospects, but as it pertains to the Chargers and connections to the Chargers and how it fits with the Chargers, same thing with Alex. Like, what is Minter looking for? Jahdae Barron, for example. Just, it's so nice that we have those 2 resources that make us look like we know anything.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll get to some super chats to kick us off. Michael is in here first. Says, ideal pick at 22 for you, defensive end, receiver, or?
If it's a position, it's probably defensive tackle. If it's a player, it's Barron. At this point, I'm just, it's getting very difficult for me to not envision him in powder blue and gold, even though he won't be unlikely to be there. Again, we see this every year, just some weird, like, I don't know what position you play, maybe this, maybe that, and we'll take the more sure thing, and they fall. Where did Jared Verse fall to? Not that he was a tweener player, but like he fell to 18 last year, which is stupid. Yeah. Brian Branch, 2nd round. Somebody falls eventually, and hoping it's Barron. But if it's a position, it's defensive tackle.
Yeah, Verse was the 3rd edge rusher taken, which is kind of crazy looking back at
so stupid
how that went. I mean, I love Jahdae Barron. He's a fantastic player. I can definitely see him fitting into this specific defense. And Alex Katzen talked about this. He was one of the players that he featured ahead of the Michigan-Texas game, like way back in week 3 or whenever that was. Barron he has legitimate safety snaps in his profile. He has slot snaps. He has outside corner snaps. There is a lot of debate of like where you play him. Very similar conversations around like Brian Branch and like, is he a safety? Is he a slot? Is he outside? Well, Brian Branch he hasn't played outside for the Lions, but he's played a ton of slot, a ton of safety. and he's really freaking good. The difference is that Barron did test extremely well. So he has that, even if he's like undersized, he has the shorter arms. So he should be gone. But if he is there at 22, it's going to be very difficult for me to pass up on Mr. Barron. I still think Colston Loveland is probably like my ideal scenario for round one. There's a chance he's there, but it sounds like the more we get into the draft, he's probably going to be, a few picks before that at least. And the Chargers are hosting him on a visit for what it's worth. That is probably for medical purposes. Although they did host 3 Michigan players last year on visits, which I think is hilarious. But I still think Colston Loveland would be the biggest upgrade on offense for me. And I think that's probably where I would focus first. So he's on the board. Barron's on the board. Kenneth Grant is on the board. Derek Harmon's on the board. Those are probably my 4 favorite outcomes for the Chargers.
That's just that'd be fun. And Telesco would pick I don't know, Revel.
Or like Tyleek Williams.
Yeah.
Probably. He's a good player, but
he is, yeah. Sorry, no disrespect to Tyleek Williams. He's awesome.
Yeah. All right, next one in here. Daddy Don't Pull Out says love from Central Texas. I think I showed that one earlier.
Yes.
San Diego is Solana Beach is in northern San Diego. Okay. I did not know that.
Cool.
From Jace Cervantes. Aether is in here, says my first mock draft after this movement. Round 1 is Michael Williams, edge Georgia. Round 2, move up to get a receiver or running back. Round 3, let's have fun, Mason Taylor. Tight end, his mom, Joy, is Miami fan. She do not like the Bolts. She is Mason Taylor's aunt, for what it's worth. Jason Taylor, the Miami Dolphins legend, that is his father, and his mom is the linebacker. What was his name? Not Justin Thomas. That's the golfer.
You're scared it out of me. Now look at I don't know. Thomas Martinez, you have the answer. He'll have the answer before I can look it up. Because I know there are 2 people in his life that are absolute like.
Yeah. His dad played on the Dolphins with Jason Taylor. Was a great linebacker. I want to say Thomas is in there somewhere.
It's not Derek Thomas, is it?
No. Derek Thomas was the Chiefs. Somebody in the chat has to know this. I'm totally blanking on the first name right now.
Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas. That's the one. Thank you. Yeah. Just to clarify that, Mason Taylor. Also, Mason Taylor in round 3, I would probably be okay with.
Sure.
But he's probably going in round 2.
Sure.
Just based on all the buzz there. But yeah, not a bad process there. I think edge in round 1, receiver, tight end, running back in day 2. I think that's a fine process from Aether.
Yeah.
Shane 7 says, what are the chances McMillan falls? Also, would you prefer a running back like Hampton or Henderson?
I still have not watched McMillan because I'm waiting as long as I can. Just out of curiosity, in terms of grade, is McMillan or Loveland higher for you?
I have Loveland higher.
Okay.
I have both tight ends higher than any of the receivers.
And they'd be ranked, and they're also ranked like grade and position value. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay. Chances he falls. I really do not know. I do not know. 4.5. Would you prefer a running back like Hampton or Henderson over McMillan, or just like which of the 2?
I think that's a separate question.
I prefer Hampton, but I have no argument if you prefer Henderson, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Chances McMillan falls. I think there's a pretty good chance. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah, these mock draft guys are all kind of talking about him as a player that's potentially going to be available in the 20s. So it always only takes one team, right? But there's been a steady decline of draft stock for Teteroa McMillan over the last couple of months, really, since I think this process has really started cranking up. A lot of these guys are saying that this is going to be somebody who could be available at 22. Does that actually happen? I don't know, man. Like receiver is such a position of value at this point in time where if you can get a guy like McMillan, even if he isn't like a surefire top 10 player anymore, if you're a team who needs a receiver, like why would you not take him? You know, it's just like I think he
Right.
should be. I do have a first round grade on him, so he should be
Okay.
like a top 15 pick.
Gotcha.
Um, but a lot of these teams are kind of pivoting away from the big receiver who catches jump balls and doesn't run super fast. So some of it is scheme fit, I'm sure. Some of it is, him going on YouTube and saying he's never watched film in his life and he doesn't plan on doing that. Like that stuff matters for NFL teams.
Yeah,
Like it's
man.
a little detail that matters a whole lot. So I think there is a pretty good chance that he would be in range of the Chargers.
I don't know how you can be on the same team with Herbert in particular, but Jim Harbaugh and these guys and say you don't watch film. I have not seen the clip, so I can't say what the context was. Was he joking? Was he dead serious?
Right.
But if that is the case, like, I just don't. It's not even. It is an issue, but it's also just straight up an issue that you said that. Like that is a decision making issue, and like why would you go out and say that? That sort of thing is what irks me.
Yeah. His 40 time ended up being like in the mid 4.5s, which I think is fine. He's definitely, not slow. Like there were people thinking that he was going to be 4.7. I think that's crazy. So mid 4.5s is about right. The ball skills and the verticality that he brings to the table are insane. Super athletic. He was like a guy who was trending towards being a legitimate like volleyball player. So he's got leaping ability that is really fantastic and shows up. He can create separation at the top of vertical routes. He's not really like a short area guy, but he's a top 15 player in this class for me. But I do have the tight ends ahead of him by quite a bit.
Yeah.
As it pertains to Hampton or Henderson, Hampton is my RB2 by a lot. I have a very high grade on Omari and Hampton, but Trevion Henderson is also fantastic. He is going to have a very long career in the NFL just because he is explosive as can be, and he pass protects like crazy. Like his pass protection film is legitimately one of the best pass protection running back tapes I have ever watched and graded. So he's going to have a very long career. Hampton is as well, but I think Henderson is probably my RB3, but I still would prefer Hampton overall. If you want Henderson, you do probably have to take him in the first round at this point in time. Like I don't think he's going to be there in the second round. I think he does work himself into the first round.
Yeah, I agree. Henderson's my RB3 right now, and I think there's potentially a small gap after that. 1 and 2, then Henderson, but then gap after that.
Who are you thinking of for RB4? Bless you.
Thank you. That's a great question. Let me pull up my grades on this one. La 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 la. Okay, so Henderson, Giddens.
Okay.
Giddens, Martinez, Caleb Johnson are in that trio. And I guess Scotty I'll throw it in kind of that group too.
Yeah, right now that group is really difficult for me to sort through. I like all of those players a lot.
Yeah.
Somebody on Twitter compared Cam Scatterboot to Gimli from Lord of the Rings, and I absolutely love that. That group is difficult for me to sort through because it's like Giddens is super athletic, and Caleb Johnson, he didn't test great, but like on tape, like that's his best attribute. Cam Scatterboot is extremely versatile, has some athletic concerns, but man, can he break tackles. So, and then Damian Martinez, I think, is just super smooth, cuts really well, makes great decisions. So there's a lot to like about that group, and I think sorting that group is right now the most difficult chunk for me to sort of this entire class.
Yeah, because then it just depends on what scheme do they fit. So and that's a whole other separate issue.
Yeah. Serge says, I know it takes 2 to tango, but hypothetical trade down with Seattle, 22 for 50 and 52. Do you prefer a first and a second or 3 seconds? So this is trading
Mhm.
completely out of the first round. So then the Chargers would have 50, 52, and 54 instead of 22 and 54.
It's tricky because when you mentioned like the ideal scenario, you mentioned 4 players that could be there at 22, and any one of them is tough for me to move off of.
Yeah.
If they're not, and you're just looking at one of the receivers, and I'm assuming it's not McMillan, edge rusher, running back. Yeah, I think I would go for this.
I almost want to run like a quick mock with that for a second.
And if you want.
Having 3 second-round picks would be super fun because we've talked about the second round being like a sweet spot for receiver, a sweet spot for guard, um, defensive line, edge. Like all of those positions are still really good at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, if any of those 4 players I mentioned, Loveland, Grant, Harmon, or Barron are on the board, I can't really pass on that. Like I think those 4 guys are each good enough, blue chip potential players where I would stick and pick there.
I'm gonna just.
Are you gonna fire up a mock real quick?
Yeah, sure. What the hell? Give me 1 second to run through that. I gotta do all the parameters and such. So, how do I?
This is why we do Saturday shows for you guys. We get in.
Yeah, you sent in a question, man.
Yeah,
we'll get done. So they get 22, and the Chargers get 50 and 52.
Yeah, so this would give the Seahawks 18 and 22.
Okay.
And then the Chargers would have 50, 52, and 54.
Okay. What happened?
And then the Chargers would have, so they would have 4 day 2 picks and 7 day 3 picks, I think is what it would end up as.
Sure. Okay. Seattle Seahawks. Feel free to answer any of the questions while.
Did you do all 7 rounds?
No, God, no. Just 2.
Just
3 rounds, excuse me.
Okay.
Why did that not work? Oh, forced trip.
Next question from Athir says, looking at the schedule this coming season, which individual matchup are you excited to see? He says Cam Hart versus Jay Jetta as Justin Jefferson. Am I crazy for this? I think yes. I love Cam Hart a lot, but Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the league. So I think that that'll be a big challenge for him. And I would expect they would double team him quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. I want to say, depends how it goes, but Jesse Minter's defensive line versus the Eagles.
Oh,
which could be disgusting.
Yeah, that could be nasty. That could not go very well.
But if you can flex like that, him and Elston and whatever they got versus.
Yeah, I mean, same game. Khalil Mack versus Jordan Mailata will be a lot of fun to watch on tape.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles don't really have great edge rushers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they still have Nolan Smith, but
Smith versus Alt might be interesting as he's a bit twitchier, explosive, smaller guy.
One of the things I'm most excited to see is them expand Joe Alt's responsibility palette. Last year they gave him a lot of help in a lot of games, but what does the rematch with like Max Crosby look like or TJ Watt when he's one-on-one, 30 times instead of 15, so that is definitely something I'm excited to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. You have the mock up.
Yep. About to lose everybody. Okay. So
we're only 44 minutes in.
No, I traded down. Higgins went, Revel went, Williams went, Landon Jackson, TJ Sanders, Caleb Johnson, Trey Amos, Derek Harmon, all those guys went. So available to you is the
who did the Seahawks end up at 22 with?
22, they took, if my computer will move, Mikael Williams. For what it's worth, at 18, they took Ezeraku. Sure, 2 edge rushers.
They do need edge rushers. So
in this case, the Chargers traded out of 22 with Grant, Loveland, Hampton, Igbuka, and Nolan on the board.
Yeah, that's tough.
Which I would not be doing. Which I would trade back 3 spots then if that were the case.
Yeah, that's tough.
So available right now. Now, granted, you can get basically all of these players: Hairston, Uman Mielen, Scadaboo, Judkins, Restrepo, Shamar Turner, Jack Sawyer, Elijah Arroyo, Darian Porter, Jared Ivey.
Omar Norman Lott is still on the board here.
Oh yeah, Norman Lott. CJ West is 69th now. Good lord, he was a day 3 pick last time.
He is shot up boards. They still have
Holy
Travion
crap.
Henderson pretty low too.
Yeah, Henderson, Alfred Collins, who I like.
So I'm definitely taking one of the defensive tackles here, whether that's Norman Lott, probably Norman Lott because he's the pass rusher.
Yeah, at this point.
So let's start with 50 Norman Lott. Is that cool with you?
Sure. Norman Lott.
And then 52. Can you show the receiver board?
Yeah. It's Higgins went right before the Chargers pick. So it's Restrepo, Trey Harris, Jalen Knoll, Jalen Royals, yada yada.
Have you watched Royals yet?
Yeah. He's an intriguing after catch option. I don't love him.
Okay. What about Jalen Knoll?
Twitchier Z type. I don't mind him.
Okay.
I think he pushes more vertically than Royals does.
Yeah, 100% does. 100%. So maybe wait on receiver?
Sure.
Okay.
If Henderson's here, I guess at this point you could just take him or Porter because they need a corner. Not they don't need a corner, but I don't know.
Stewart. Mason Taylor is on the board here.
Ferguson, Farmer.
Man, they have Savinea way low.
Yeah, one of these three should probably be an interior guy since they have 3.
Yeah. So do you want to go with one of the tight ends here?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Okay. Let's take a running back then and a guard.
All right. I'm a Henderson guy of this group that's here. Well, sure. Henderson.
Yeah, Henderson works.
Cool.
Even though I think it's potentially unrealistic.
Yes. All right. Dark Samus, where are you? Although, let me pull up offensive tackle too, because there's some.
Yeah.
Of this group, of the interior group, you'd go with Jonah?
I probably would, yeah. Ratledge is, I think, also a scheme fit, but he does have an injury history. So, there's, Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler say that he's firmly like a round 2 player, but he's missed a good amount of time. He had tightrope ankle surgery this last year, and then I think he had a knee issue his freshman year that had to redshirt for. So there is some medical things that I would need to get checked out. Whereas Jonas Savinea there's no missed games on his tape. He can play tackle for you, although he does want to play guard. He says that himself. So I would go with Jonah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Basically, I'm hating all of this. I mean, I'm not hating the picks. The players are good, but
you're hating having the 3 2-round picks instead of a first rounder.
Correct, or at least with how the board played out.
All right, we can go Ferguson here if you want.
Yep, done. Okay, did it. There's no receivers. Oh shit, that's right. We took a receiver. Anyway, that's that. Good thought exercise, and thank you for the math for us. We got to see. I think PFF will always hate if we take a lineman. I rarely find.
Well, I think that specifically is because he's a tackle for them, even though he probably is a guard.
Okay,
but
the Chargers don't need a tackle.
D for Trayvon Henderson at 52 is hilarious.
Yeah, that's sure.
And then an A for Ferguson. Okay, whatever. But listen, man, in a vacuum, if they get Omar Norman Lott, Trayvon Henderson, and a starting caliber guard in round 2, I think that makes sense. But I still prefer the first round pick. So I think one thing we could see the Chargers do is use those 7 day 3 picks and move back into the 3rd round. So then they get an extra top 100 pick, and you give up your 5th and a 6th round pick kind of deal. So that is a scenario where I think the Chargers should explore. I think they could move up in the 2nd round, but I think they need a 1st round pick. They're at the point of their roster build where they need a blue chip player to drop into this room. And so I still would want them to have the 1st round pick.
Yeah, I agree. That was a rough one once I saw the board. I get the idea. But
Listen, that was a great question from Serge, though.
yeah,
It was a great thought exercise at this point in time.
yeah.
Thier, I think we answered that question. Landon asking, curious why you guys aren't as high on Tyler Booker. Watched him yesterday and was pretty impressed. I don't want to just like be known as this guy who hates Tyler Booker. Like, he's a good player. He's just not a first round player, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think there are some technique concerns. I think there's definitely some athletic concerns. Like, there were times where they would like have him get out on like a tunnel screen or have him, pull on a counter.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just not able to get there. Like, he is not a athletic person. Does he fit the scheme? Yes, but like, Bradley Bozeman, there were several instances every single game where he couldn't get to that second reach level, and it cost the Chargers big time. And not that Tyler Booker is that level of athlete. But if you're gonna be a first round guard, we talked a little bit about this on Thursday. You have to check like every box. Like, you have to be an elite athlete, you have to be an elite people mover, you have to check the personality boxes, the leadership boxes. And Tyler Booker checks most of those boxes, but he does not check the athleticism box. So I think for me, there's
Mm-hmm.
just better value and a higher chance of hitting on a first round pick if you are not taking Tyler Booker.
Yeah. And I'm just in the middle. I think he's fine. I think
Yeah.
he'll be a top 40 player for me, probably.
Yeah, same. For me, the pushback is the first round pick part.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
we've come back a little bit. We've come back a little bit. Like, Daniel Jeremiah's first mock, I think he had the Bears going Tyler Booker at pick 10. And now we're seeing him more in like the late teens, early 20s. And that is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not ideal for me, but I think if you take him in the 30s, I think that's good. Good
Mm-hmm.
value for Tyler Booker. But at pick 22, I think there are better options.
Where's Booker for you in terms of like Avila and Torrance? Both went round 2?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Steve Avila.
Mm-hmm.
And he checks the athleticism box, and I think he tested pretty well. But I think that's pretty similar. Him and Torrance are like carbon copies of each other,
Right.
body type wise, style wise. So that's probably pretty close. And Torrance was, I think, picked like 56 or 7. Like, he was like he was like late second round pick for the Bills.
Yeah.
The Gaming Society says, do the moves made by Ortiz show that he doesn't believe that the roster was, quote, a player away?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you make these moves even if, I don't know, you need bodies on your roster. So, I mean, I don't even know if this has anything to do with that as much as we needed to fill 29 roster spots.
Yeah.
And we got to do it with something.
Yeah, I think part of it too was this particular free agency class. Like, if T. Higgins had actually hit free agency and if Trey Smith had actually hit free agency, maybe there's a different kind of conversation here. But there's no way they were paying Milton Williams $27 million to beat the Patriots offer. They were not paying DK Metcalf $33 million to beat the Steelers offer. Like, that's just not how this regime is ever going to operate. They will pay their own guys market price. They are not going to pay free agents that kind of level of money. So I think that is also part of it here. Athir with another one. Our guy Athir sending in 3 super chats. It's fantastic. Appreciate it very much. She says, Tyler, listen, please. If Kenneth Grant is a Charger, Chris Jones pass the torch, please. Like Stephen Guy, Lane Johnson needs to pass the torch to Joe Alt. Lane Johnson's not really my guy. He's the best right tackle in the league. But yeah, passing the torch to Joe Alt will be very cool.
Yeah. Alt needs to officially pass Sewell this year. Lane got a 1-year extension. He'll be around. Somehow is better now than he was, which is crazy. So I don't know if Kenneth Grant is a Chris Jones pass torch thing. I can't imagine they're 2 similar players.
Yeah, no, Kenneth Grant is more Dexter Lawrence type, which is very, very good. It'd be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, Dexter Lawrence, man. I remember Eric Williams walking up when they did the ESPN mock draft, and so each beat writer go up, and Eric Williams mocked. Back when I actually watched ESPN, he mocked Dexter Lawrence to the Chargers. Like, yeah, that sounds really good. And they ended up with not Dexter Lawrence, the complete opposite of Dexter Lawrence.
Oh, was that the Tillery year?
That's correct. It was like
That
one of
was
my third bold beat articles was like, "Don't draft Jerry Tillery."
That's a pretty good one. Lawrence went pretty high though. Lawrence went at 17.
Yeah, Chargers were 28. Yeah.
Man, there's some good players after they took Jerry Tillery. At least they didn't took N'Keal Harry. That would have been very bad.
Yeah.
Second round after him. I mean, Byron Murphy was the first pick of the third round. Granted, they didn't really need a corner. They could have taken Dalton Reisner. That would have been okay.
Yeah, that's at the time who I wanted.
Elton Jenkins, 44. That would have been sick. Eric McCoy, 48.
Yeah.
H.A. Brown, 51. Nasir Adderley picked 60.
And we loved that selection.
Yeah. I still think Nasir Adderley, like his last 2 years were good. Like he was training towards becoming a good NFL player and then retired, unfortunately.
Yeah, not lovely. It's crazy to see the number of Pro Bowl players that are from this list if you're looking at Wikipedia. But it's like Miles Sanders is on there as a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
But like
there's not a ton of like the somebody was going fast.
Yeah.
That first round. So after Jeffrey Simmons went at 19, it's kind of a disaster. I mean, like Noah Fant's been okay. Darnell Savage has been okay, but Andre Dillard, bad. Titus Howard, fine. Josh Jacobs, okay. Hollywood Brown, 25. It's kind of yikes for the Ravens. Montez Sweat's been good, but traded. Jonathan Abram. I guess it could have been much worse than Jerry Tillery.
It could have been worse.
At least Jerry Tillery played. LJ Collier at 29. DeAndre Baker, 30. Caleb McGarry, 31. That's been good for them.
Mm-hmm.
N'Keal Harry, 32. Not a great 20s to 30s group.
No. An okay group. Best group is still, I think that I think is 2021, based on how that's going to turn out. That draft is just stupid.
Yeah, let's look at the 2021 draft. Quarterback class, not so much, but
no.
Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Panay Sewell, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Devontae Smith, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker, Alex Leatherwood.
Then the Raiders.
Jalen Phillips is a good player. Yikes. Kadarius Toney, Jamin Davis. Woody Pay is good. Christian Darrisaw, Najee Harris, Greg Newsome. Wow, I did not realize that Rashad Bateman was a first-round pick. Eric Stokes. Greg Rousseau, Odafe Oweh. Those are good picks. Tyson Campbell was the first pick of day 2. Javon Holland, Landon Dickerson, Christian Barmore. A lot of guys who've been getting paid. Trayvon Merrick.
It's sad because there's a lot of players I really liked on here that didn't turn out so hot.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of the beast,
Right.
But yeah, this is, if you look at the APY of most of the positions in the NFL, that first round is a lot of those guys.
Yeah. And that group still had Creed later on.
Yep.
Koromoa.
Creed was picked 63, man.
That is ridiculous.
And the friggin' Packers at 62 took Josh Myers.
Round 3 was Milton Williams, Osa. I mean, this is a good group.
Yeah. That was like the first draft where I feel like I actually like knew what I was kind of talking about and looking for.
Yeah.
The first year we had all 22 tape, so
yeah. See, I completely had to change because that was my first group to look at, and so I just assumed it was really easy. Like, oh, Jamar Chase, okay, he's good. Yep, Smith, good. Waddle, good. Okay, the tackles, 1, 2, 3, all good. Easy. Great. Next year, Neil, Cross, and I didn't even remember the third guy's name.
Oh,
Went to the Panthers. NC State.
What is his name? I guess I can look.
I thought evaluating tackles was so easy, and then
Ikem Ikwanu.
There you go.
Icky.
Yeah, I was like,
Okay,
yeah.
Icky.
It's like Sewell 1, Slater 2, Jarasaw 3, and then they had like Cosme or whatever 4. And I didn't like Alex Leatherwood, and he stunk. I'm like, this is easy.
Yeah.
Evaluating linemen is so easy.
Super easy, yeah.
And then just got destroyed the next year.
Yeah.
Absolutely killed. And they took Zion.
Yeah. Shame. Frank came in here late with another super chat. Says, what are your first and second round picks? Defender in the first and offensive player in the second. Then offensive player in the first, defensive player in the second.
I believe I'm going defense first.
Yeah.
Based on the way things are lining up.
Yeah. Like I said, Colston Loveland still is my choice for first round if he's there. But the way things are trending, I'm not opposed to Omarion Hampton at pick 22. I think that's a fine outcome. But I still think I would take the defensive tackles and probably an edge rusher over Omarion Hampton. Defensive player in the second round, I still think you could definitely grab a defensive tackle there. Edge rushers always tend to go earlier than we think, so that could definitely be Josiah Stewart territory. And we know he obviously fits the Charger scheme, and that dude is an absolute wrecking ball of an edge rusher, even though he's only 6'1". So I would love to see a world where he ends up out on the Chargers. I just don't know if that's going to line up for them this year.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a couple more questions. If you guys have any, feel free and fire away. Somebody asking about our biggest draft flop. I think that probably has to be Zion, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I won't. The thing is with Zion, I won't feel bad about that one because the numbers were good, the RAS was good, the film was good. Generally, consensus guard 1, so like everything was there. I don't really regret because I liked Slater the year before and Alt 2 years later, and that was just fine.
Yeah,
number, film community, RAS was all there. I to this day do not actually know what the heck happened.
Yeah, it sucks. Like people make fun of us for it online, but everybody that watched Zion had Zion very, very highly. Like he was a consensus like top 15 player for sure. Some people had him as top 5. So, when the Chargers drafted him, I went on like a couple other shows and they were like, dude, this was an awesome pick. This was great.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were not the only ones who liked Zion, but for whatever reason, man, just hasn't not been able to put it all together.
Yeah.
All right, got a couple super chats in here. That's fantastic. Jacob Arnall says, if Grant, Love, and T-Mac are all available in the first round, which would you go with? I would say Loveland, Grant, and then T-Mac.
Grant. Haven't watched McMillan.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Grant has the highest ceiling of these three by a wide margin, but if you can get Loveland and supercharge the offense in a hurry, I think that is the best chance to do that. Alex Bridgeforth says, if I was watching the draft at Buffalo Wild Wings with my 10-year-old, who should we be most excited to draft?
Nice. Oh, okay. That's cool.
Ashton, if you were a 10-year-old fan, who would you be your favorite player?
Yeah, I would want the Chargers to take. Yeah, I mean, if Genty were available, 100%. I can tell you that I don't teach 10-year-olds, but the teenagers I teach, they want the Chargers to take Loveland. That's what those kids think the Chargers should take. And so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, the younger kids always want an offensive player. I mean, the majority of fans want an offensive player, I think. If they could get Ashton Genty, man, that would be amazing. If I were a 10-year-old player, 10-year-old me was absolutely obsessed with Antonio Gates. Like I loved tight ends back then. Obviously, I was a Chargers fan, but
Yeah.
As much as I love LT and hold him in such a high regard, like when I was a kid, my favorite player was Gates because I've always had an affinity for tight ends. So I would, if I were a kid and I watched Tyler Warren like take direct snaps and like just run people over, little 10-year-old Steven, probably his favorite player in this draft would be Tyler Warren.
Ooh. Okay, so that's okay. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, because you watch him take like a handoff for 40 yards.
Yeah, because this guy, I mean, against USC, he snaps the ball and then scores a touchdown. Like 10-year-old me would have been like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think he even has like a passing touchdown in there.
Yep. And then he's got rushing snaps, he's got screens, he's got the deep balls. Like he'll dunk on you from a mossing standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I love Tyler Warren now. 10-year-old me definitely would have been a huge Tyler Warren fan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, not going to be there at Big 22. Steve Simmons, how do you feel about Henderson, D. Edwards, or Cam? Is that Cam Scadaboo?
Mm-hmm.
As a change of pace back, and what is your choice at receiver? Yeah.
Love Henderson. Maybe no, because he does have elite things like pass blocking. I have Hampton higher for sure, but there's so much to like about Henderson. As you said, he'll be in the league forever. You can book like 10 years with Henderson. I feel like maybe he's a third down back because he's a good route runner. Maybe he's just a passing block back. Maybe he's your change of pace back. Could also be your starter. I'm curious what like his NFL comps are because I just really like watching him. Edwards I haven't watched. Scottaboo is a change of pace back. If they want to go 1-2 with this like physicality, I'd get that. Again, you could just go for Martinez maybe later. Choice of receiver, it's still Trey Harris.
Okay, Trey Harris. Yeah, love Henderson, love Cam Scadaboo. I am not a fan of Donovan Edwards' NFL future. I do not think that he will be successful, unfortunately. And he's like I've watched, I think 14. I've watched and graded 14 running backs, and I haven't even gotten to him. Like he's way down the list.
Yeah.
Receiver, I love Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins is my guy. I saw the other day that Connor Rogers from NFL Stock Exchange actually has Higgins ahead of Luther Burden and I think Matthew Golden as well. So he has Higgins as his wide receiver 3 behind Travis Hunter and Teteroa McMillan. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of love for Jaden Higgins. I think he just does so many things well, and he's 6'4" contested catch guy as well. So I love Jaden Higgins. He's somebody I would definitely trade up for in the second round. Steve Smith also likes Higgins. That's good to know. Good to know. Yeah, so I do like Trey Harris quite a bit, though.
Yeah, I'm starting to just like more of like the. It's so tricky. Receiver is so tricky because you can be a pretty good X prospect and then I don't know go to the Patriots and have 7 yards or whatever Jalen Polk had.
It's like, yeah, dude, we both really liked Jalen Polk, and then
he was my guy after McConkey. Like he was my wide receiver 6. I nailed 1 to 5 and fucked up 6 so bad. Like it's crazy. Granted,
just landed in the worst possible spot.
Yeah, not a great ecosystem over there, but like, geez. So we'll see.
I like Javon Baker too, and that didn't work for them either.
Even statistically, they should have had something. It was just a bad 1-2, bad ecosystem. I'm waiting for my Cedric Tillman breakout year though.
The Patriots should just not draft a receiver like ever because it does not go well. I guess like Pop Douglas for them is like fine, but
yeah,
they just should not do that.
Yeah,
no receivers for them. Rick H-Town finishing the show off says, is K Grant really that dude, or is he a beneficiary playing alongside of Mason Graham?
I'm sure it helps, but I think he's definitely that dude.
Kenneth Graham was still getting double teamed like quite a lot. And I think you're drafting the physical traits more so there than anything else. So the fact that you're getting a guy who is, 6'4", 330 pounds and can move the way that he does and is clocking 18, 19 miles per hour on the field, consistently. He ran a 5.1, which is like, it was a good time, but people are like, this is not as fast as I was expecting. He's 330 pounds, folks. Like 5.1 is absolutely moving.
Yeah.
So there are some concerns about like pad level that I have for him if you're being a little nitpicky, but that is definitely something I would expect, for him to work on in the NFL, especially if he gets to get back with Mike Elston here. And this is a guy who just has all of the athletic attributes you could possibly want at nose tackle. He can rush the passer, stop the run. He can shoot gaps. He can take on double teams. Like he does the thing where like Puna Ford will dead leg it sometimes and like almost take a knee to stop a double team. Kenneth Grant will do that. He can shoot a gap and get a tackle for loss. He can wreck screens. So yeah, Kenneth Grant is that dude. But playing next to Mason Graham does help from a pass rush perspective for sure. But he still takes on plenty of double teams.
Yeah. Dexter Lawrence, 505 40 at 342, and he's fine.
Yeah. When I saw the reaction to his 40 time, I was like, what are we doing here? He's 330 pounds. Like, did you expect him to run like a 4.6? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I mean, Braden Fisk was fast, and maybe that's why people are like, oh, that's how fast defensive tackles should run. Fisk was like, what, 296 or something?
Yeah.
So, yeah, not even close.
Yeah. All right. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
Excited to get much closer to April, much closer to the draft. People are asking about if we're doing a live show. Absolutely. All 3 days we'll be there. And for better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. Last year, there was also a Wednesday show because there was like a massive surge towards JC Latham, and people were like, what the shit is going on? So we did a show before that as well. So if something like that happens for the Chargers this year, we will definitely do what the shit is going on show before the draft as well.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay. All right. I was going to address something, but I decided not to.
Cool.
Okay. So we will be back on Tuesday. We're probably going to stick to a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule up until Brooke and I leave to London. Oh, we got a second super chat from Steve. You guys rock. So Brooke and I are going to be in London. So we're going to have some pre-recorded videos for you guys. And then Tyler and probably other people will be live while I'm gone for like 10 days-ish over there in the UK. But yeah, we'll have you covered. Lots of draft content coming down the pipeline for sure. And then, yeah, that the live stream of Draft Week is going to be awesome.
Should be amazing.
All right, guys. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. Appreciate the super chats. Make sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe. All that good stuff does help continue to grow the show. We will see you on Tuesday. As always, bolt up.